two Afghan illegal immigrants who raped a child in a park are living a life of luxury in a cushy youth prison. The two Afghans brutally dragged a 15-year-old girl into the bushes and raped her after coming to Britain on a small boat. These are the two sex beasts, Jan Jahanzib and Israfeel. One of them, Jahanzib, even did a video diary of his journey across Europe before breaking into Britain, walking around, wearing designer clothes. Now, they're living it up in a young offenders institution, where they get arts and crafts lessons, film nights, laptops, they even get £20 worth of taxpayers' cash to spend on sweets.
There is a moment when a nation stops being a country and becomes a crime scene. This is not that story. This is the story of the months, the years of negligence that led to that moment. This is the forensic report on a collapse. So, how do you turn this into a national funeral pyre? You follow the manual. Step 1. Let two men, who are ghosts in your own system, drag a child into the bushes. Step 2. When you finally catch them, house them in a facility where the amenities brochure reads better than a university prospectus. Step 3. When an outraged public demands to know why, hide behind a paperwork loophole so flimsy, so willingly accepted, it's not a legal defense. It's a confession. This isn't a crime story. It is a case study in societal suicide. Most channels shy away from the ugly truth. Subscribe now. Because what you're about to see isn't just Britain's warning. It's every nation's blueprint for disaster. Listen to the victim and her mother speak. This isn't just a testimony, it's a gut punch that will leave you boiling with a rage you can't do anything with.
Tim, in a statement, said, quote, "The day I was raped changed me as a person. Every time I go out I don't feel safe. So much so that I've started to avoid it altogether. This has also impacted my education and school life at the worst possible time." The victim's mother said, "We have watched our vibrant, happy and confident daughter shrink down and suffer with anxiety so bad that she's often physically sick. This has affected every aspect of my daughter's life, and anything that hurts one of us, hurts us all in our family."
Our story doesn't start in a park. It starts here, in the grey void of the channel. For Jan Jahanzib and Israfeel, this was the entrance to a new life. It was also the perfect eraser. No passports. No documents. No verifiable history. By the time they waded onto a Kent beach, they were digital ghosts. The system could assign them a case number, but it could never truly know them. Their age? A number they provided. A claim, lodged in the faith-based calculus of a broken asylum process. The official tasked with assessing them faces an impossible equation. No proof. Only intuition. He might see the stubble, the weathered hands, the eyes that have seen too much. But the rulebook, shaped by decades of political fear and legalistic obsession, whispers, give the benefit of the doubt. The doubt is now a weapon. And it has just been smuggled into the town of Lamington Spa. A 15-year-old girl, believing in the fundamental safety of her own street. 8 seconds from sighting to contact. 20 seconds from contact to the sound that should have frozen the world, a scream so primal it cuts through the audio like a shard of glass. And then, silence. Manufactured. A hand over a mouth. The green darkness of the bushes swallows them whole. What was stolen in those minutes wasn't just her safety. It was her past, present, and future. Her mother would later speak of the transformation, a vibrant child reduced to a phantom in her own home, physically sick with anxiety, a prisoner of memory. The crime was complete. But the injustice was just loading its first round. The courtroom should have been where logic was restored. Instead, it became the laboratory where injustice was crystallized. The court faced its manufactured dilemma. Were these the adults their actions screamed they were? Or were they the children their unverifiable story claimed? With no legal pathway to challenge their word, no mandatory dental scans, no bone analysis, deemed too invasive, the system performed its catastrophic alchemy. It turned the absence of evidence into evidence of youth. They were now, legally, children. The sentence was not just custodial. It was transactional. 10 years and 8 months. But the location, that was the message. a young offender institution. We are not talking about a grim, Victorian dungeon. According to prison officers speaking off the record, we are talking about units with private in-suit showers, subsidized cash for sweets and phone credits, and of course, the great pacifier of the modern age, Xbox consoles. Let's be brutally clear. This is not rehabilitation. This is the creation of a perverse parallel universe. In one cell, a perpetrator logs into Call of Duty. In a bedroom 10 miles away, his victim is lost in a terror that has no off switch. The state has become the event planner for one, and a ghostly absentee landlord for the other. The fuel for the coming fire is now stacked, drenched, and waiting for a spark. The news didn't break. It detonated. It didn't travel through news cycles, it bypassed them entirely, a shockwave through WhatsApp groups, community forums, and encrypted channels. By nightfall, the whispering had become a roaring frequency. London, Birmingham, Manchester. The streets didn't fill with activists. They filled with fathers with clenched jaws, mothers with hollow eyes. They held printed pictures of a girl they'd never met because they suddenly saw their own daughter in her face. Their chant was a simple, hammering heartbeat, save our kids. But a plea for salvation curdles into a cry for vengeance when it meets a wall of silent authority. The police lines formed the Iron Line. But this wasn't a football crowd. This was a referendum. The bottles that flew weren't just projectiles, they were rejected ballots. The cry changed. From save our kids to one word, spat with venom, traitors. The authority figures were no longer protectors. They were perceived as the guard force for the very architecture of betrayal. In the command centers, the language changed from crowd control to containment. Sectors were reported lost. And from the epicenters of power, Downing Street, Buckingham Palace, what was the response? A deafening, calculated, politically petrified silence. The Prime Minister was seen, phone glued to his ear, performing a pantomime of business as he vanished behind a door. At the palace, a single lit window showed a shadow pacing before the curtains were jerked shut. For 9 hours, the monarchy, the last resort for national unity, said nothing. The state had gone mute. In that silence, the mob found its voice. And so, the narrative battle began. From sterile studios, the label was applied, far-right extremists. A tidy, manageable box. But on the ground, the reality was messier, more dangerous. This wasn't an ideology. It was an immune response. Because while the streets burned, the bureaucracy was issuing its own orders. Leaked memos to police commanders were not about reclaiming streets for the public. They were about protecting the fiction. Contain the unrest. Protect the facility's anonymity. Do not discuss the inmate status. The order was clear: your job is not to serve justice, or even to explain it. Your job is to be a human shield for a failing policy. And in that moment, every citizen became a forensic accountant of their own rage. A National Health Service nurse, working 12-hour shifts, posted her monthly take-home pay. It was less than the estimated weekly cost of housing one of the attackers. The injustice was no longer abstract. It was mathematical. It was the money for your daughter's music lessons, now funding a predator's video game. The social contract wasn't being broken. It was being itemized, and the bill was enraging. The dawn came, not with clarity, but with the acrid smell of wet ash and the cold reality of the aftermath. Politicians emerged, calling for calm, for healing. They missed the point with stunning precision. The public had been calm. Calm through 1,000 warnings. Calm through the Rotherham and Rochdale grooming gang scandals, where authorities looked away. Calm through every red-flagged report about discarded passports and impossible teenagers. Their calm was the kindling. When the police cavalry finally charged, scattering the last remnants of the mob, it was a tactical victory that felt like a spiritual surrender. They were enforcing order on behalf of a state that had surrendered its moral right to command it. Britain discovered a terrifying new equation that night. When a government becomes more frightened of being called racist than of being called negligent, when it fears human rights lawyers more than it fears the righteous fury of its own people, it is no longer a government. It is a management firm presiding over a slow-motion riot. The riot wasn't the crisis. It was the diagnosis. And the patient is still in denial.